This is Should Have Asked the Tour Guide.
Hey, it has been a while. Well, we're in the off season here in Washington, D.C., and our tour guides like to travel and experience new places.
Hello from Dublin, Ireland.
Hello from Australia.
Hello from Texas.
Or if you're like me, you're 7 months pregnant, snowed in, and dealing with a government shutdown. We have been getting lots of questions from folks who are still planning on visiting Washington, D.C. on what they can and cannot do during this shutdown. So I thought I would take this time at home to share with you some of the insights and resources that we have into planning a trip. As a disclaimer, we have no inside information. We're tour guides. We do have friends and contacts all over the city, and folks are letting us know as soon as information is released to the public, which we will share with you. We have a blog post on things to do in DC during the shutdown that is updated on a daily basis. And anytime we have more information, we'll put it out on Twitter. So you can follow us at Top Things to Do DC. You never know, it's never confirmed that the shutdown's going to happen until it happens, and it's never confirmed that it's over until it's over, which makes it difficult to plan for. It really is one of those hope for the best, plan for the worst situations. So the first thing to keep in mind is the difference between a full and a partial shutdown. So in a full government shutdown, it's a bit easier to plan. Everything's closed. In a partial shutdown, it depends on whether that department has been funded or not. For example, right now, January 2019, the Capitol and the Library of Congress are open to tourists because they have been funded through September of 2019. And if the government's still shut down in September, we have other things to be worried about than what museum is still open. So in a partial shutdown, you really do need to contact individual attractions and look at whether they're open or not. Now, the best way to do that would be social media. But someone's job is social media, and if their department is closed and they're not reporting to work, then they're not updating social media. So you really need to follow third parties, such as us. As I said, we'll update Twitter whenever we can. Second thing to keep in mind are the museums. Now, places like the National Archives, completely federal funded, they close regardless of what type of shutdown. But I assure you, tourist attractions and museums in DC don't want to be closed. So museums like the Smithsonian and the Holocaust Museum that have funding that they can use will stay open as long as they can. And some attractions are being very clever. For example, Ford's Theater. The theater and the museum are National Park Service sites and thus are closed. But Ford's Theater is also an actual theater. They have productions there, and those are still open. So if you really want to see Ford's Theater, you can buy a ticket to a performance, see a great show, visit the theater. But if that's not in your budget or in your schedule, they have moved some things to the lobby, which is open during the day, and you can see them there. Also, their aftermath exhibits of what happened after Lincoln's assassination are still open regardless of the shutdown. Another big draw to Washington, D.C. is the memorials. Also technically part of the National Park Service, so kind of closed, kind of open. You know, we're not like Joshua Tree, Yosemite. There's no road that leads in that they can close the gates to. The memorials are outside. But bathrooms are closed, gift shops are shut. And depending how shut down the National Park Service is, you may not be able to walk inside through the memorials. But at this moment, so far, you still can. So what can you do in DC during a shutdown? Well, first of all, our tours. We are able to run pretty much every tour, some with a few minor alterations during a government shutdown. We also have discounted rates for private groups to make sure that you guys can still have the best trip to the city. Private museums, attractions, historic house museums, they're all still open during the shutdown. The Newseum, Mount Vernon, Madame Tussauds, they do have ticketed prices, but they are well worth it. But there are still free things that you can do. In fact, we have a whole section on our blog on alternatives to the Smithsonian's. Some are free, some do have a small ticketed cost. So if you are really excited about visiting the Air and Space Museum, you might also like the Museum of the Marine Corps. Or if you had tickets to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, the African American Civil War Museum in U Street is a great alternative. Don't get me wrong, we would like the shutdown to end. But if you already had a trip planned to DC and you still want to make it, there are a lot of things that you can still do here. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, comment below. Tag us on social media at Top Things to Do DC. If you're interested in joining one of our tours, check out our website. It's linked below. Or send me an email, info@dcbyfoot.com. Now, if you're interested in visiting DC during a snowstorm during the shutdown, different video. And I'll cover that next week because I'll still be here and Buglarka is still in Australia.